What up, what up, what up, what up? It's the final episode. Get it? Like, it's the final countdown. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that by the time that this ends, that Marilyn and I will be a YouTube star. Maybe we won't. Maybe we won't. Obama. By the way, we aren't going to talk about Trump because the state of Tennessee doesn't ask us about Trump. So we are stopping with Obama and conjecturing into the future. Oh, come on. Hey, what's happening? I fixed it. The Obama years at home. As the first black president, Barack Hussein Obama's time in office is already historic. The Affordable Health Care Act, also known as Obamacare, and the recovery from the Great Recession after a $700 billion bank bailout, and intense partisan politics have defined his presidency as they still do today, as you know. Partisan politics means each party fighting against each other. In 2008, a majority of Americans elected Barack Obama, the nation's first black president. In a speech in 2004, Barack Obama said, "There's not a liberal America and a conservative America. There's the United States of America. There's not a black America and a white America and Latino America and Asian America. There's the United States of America." It was one of the most famous speeches and where people first started to notice this young man as a possibility for president. Hey, where's my music? Born in Hawaii, maybe Kenya, depends who you ask. Obviously, I believe he was born in Hawaii, as do most people. He's ranked 12th, even today. I just checked recently. Most modern historians rank him as 12th. That would be because of ending a war in Iraq, and also because of getting our nation back on track after the Great Recession, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. Oh, what did it say? He collects Spider-Man comics, and read every one of the Harry Potter books. Do you guys read Harry Potter? I don't know if you guys even read Harry Potter. Did you read Harry Potter? I did. I didn't get to all the books. I didn't get the last 3. Obama, I think I'm going to do that when I retire. Obama inherited the Great Recession and knew that further economic stimulus would be necessary. So that's percent of job losses in post-World War II recessions. And then, of course, it was way, way, way more severe. More than any recession since the 1930s. And U.S. passports issued by year, way, 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 way more. That's 2008. Monthly trade volume, higher and higher and higher, and it has proceeded higher under Trump. U.S. real estate prices, residential versus commercial property, from 2000 to 2009. Remember, there was a housing bubble in 2008. So this is what I was telling you about. The prices keep getting higher and higher and higher and higher. And here's my house, $280,000, which, let's see, 2003. $280,000, and then higher, 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 till it was almost $500,000. And then the price dropped right back down, which was fine because we bought it at $280,000. But if we'd have sold it when it was really high, we'd have made bank. Same thing, monthly retail sales dropped. We had a huge recession, nobody had any money as a result. United States live births also dropped. People can't afford kids as far as they are concerned. So they measure this kind of stuff by consumer spending. So in 2008, before the recession, this is how much consumer spending, and then much less. Book sales before, in 2007, 20.5 billion, and then 23.9 billion. So everything drops. Percentage increase in New York Times articles that mentioned uncertainty, 44%. Taxes collected by the Treasury, way, way, way higher in 2009 when we had to pay for a $700 billion bank bailout. Percentage who believe it's more important to preserve gun owners' rights than to control guns. 37% in 2008, and now in 2010, 46%. I would assume in 2020, that would be way, way higher still after the Trump presidency. How did the Great Recession affect Americans? Unemployment rate was 4.7%, but after the Great Recession, 10%. Percentage of unemployed who have been unemployed for 27 weeks or more, 19%, 42% during the recession. Government unemployment benefits paid this much unemployment and then $128 billion after the Great Recession. 18 to 29-year-olds who moved back in with their parents, 24%. Percentage of 18 to 29 who think America's still a land of prosperity, 70%. Everybody still believes in the American dream. Number of people in poverty, 37 million in 2007, 43 million in 2009. And then food stamp recipients way up after the Great Recession. Again, it's the worst since the Great Depression of 1929 through 1949? I don't know, about 10 years. Bank failures. Many banks went under as a result of this. Market cap of 99-cent stores, way down. Market cap of eBay, way up. Interest rate on a 2-year Treasury note. Before, 3.125%. After, you might as well just put it in a sock drawer. Total assets of the Federal Reserve before, $886 billion. After that, $2.349 trillion. Currency in circulation, $977 billion. Active militias, 2007 there's 43. 2009 as a result there's 127. Today, oh my gosh, I don't even want to guess how many active militias there are today. And Secret Service agents, more Secret Service agents as well. And the banks were considered too big to fail, and that's why we had to bail them out. And we had $700 billion. I tried to write that on the board for my students at the time. I tried to write that number, 700 billion. So that's 700. That's 700,000. That's 700 million. And so that's $700 billion. I don't know if that's right. I think that's right. That's a lot of money. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of money. And it all came from our taxes. It had to come from somewhere. So U.S. bank failures. 1985, 1990, when we had a recession at the end of Reagan, it was high, right around 1990. And then it was low. And then 2010, that's how much higher it was. Taxpayer money was used to bail out banks deemed too big to fail. Almost $700 billion. Obama was critical to saving U.S. automobile giants, and he brought down the 10% unemployment that he inherited from the Bush administration. A lot of these Ford, Chrysler, and GM almost went out of business, but the federal government bailed them out, and now they are thriving again today. Versus going under, and all those people losing jobs. So the auto industry jobs in Ohio, just as an example, in Ohio. So before 2007, and then after in 2012, how people just kept losing jobs in the auto industry. And these are all those famous banks that got bailed out and how much money each of these banks got. They all got a ton of money, and it equaled $700 billion. TARP, Troubled Asset Relief Program. Some failing companies that received money from the federal government but spent it on bonuses for executives instead of hiring back workers. The money they got from the federal government, they gave millions and millions of dollars to the same CEOs that made their banks almost fail. And then they still paid out bonuses to them. In March 2010, Obama signed the famous Affordable Health Care Act, also known as Obamacare. That is still what we have today. The Supreme Court just ruled on it a few weeks ago, and it seems as though it's going to stay. Obamacare forbids insurance companies from denying health care coverage and requires all Americans to buy health care or face fines. This mandate that Americans have to buy health insurance of one kind or another is what made so many people angry. But the reason he did that is so that there's nobody uninsured in all of America, because all of the uninsured in America, they still go to the hospital if their arm is broken. They still go to the hospital if they've been in a terrible accident, even though they have no insurance. Doctors still put them together again, and then the taxpayers are on the hook for it. So that's why he makes that mandate. And then this is the healthcare website that they made. Obamacare allows single-payer insurance seekers opportunity to join healthcare exchanges by applying for insurance as a group to lower their rates. So if you go to buy insurance just for your family, it is way, way more expensive than if Sumner County Schools goes and buys healthcare for all of their employees, or whether FedEx goes and buys healthcare for all of their employees. They can negotiate a way lower rate than just one human being can negotiate. So they made these health insurance cooperatives, these exchanges, so they could lower the healthcare costs with Obamacare. So there are the state exchanges. The United States spends more in healthcare than other industrialized nations, even though other industrialized nations all have universal healthcare, meaning that everybody is provided for healthcare in the country by the government. We're the only nation, the only large industrialized nation, it's not even large, just industrialized nation that does not have universal healthcare. Obamacare was designed to make healthcare insurance cheaper because taxpayers would not be on the hook to pay for uninsured people who need medical care. That's Romney. In the 2012 election, Obama defeated Mitt Romney. In 2008, Obama got 53% of the popular vote and 365 electoral votes. In 2012, Obama got 51% of the popular vote and 332 electoral votes. Republicans adamantly opposed to Obamacare had tried 52 times to repeal it through April of 2014, and the years since many, many, many more times. So it's a famous political cartoon that's showing that the Republicans are theoretically doing what they can to make sure that Obamacare cannot be successful. In April 2014, Obamacare exceeded sign-up goals. 7.1 million people signed up. Despite very serious problems with the website launch in the fall of 2013, lots of people tried to log on, and the website wouldn't work, and it wouldn't work, and it wouldn't work. Economic and scientific revolutions. So we're moving on. The United States is transitioning out of the industrial age as the economy becomes more focused on scientific research and design, information-based services like technology, and increasingly outsourcing manufacturing jobs to other countries. When I was growing up, many, many people in Dayton, Ohio worked for automobile companies, GM, Ford, all of that, same as in Detroit. Now, many of those, because of NAFTA that was signed by Bill Clinton, many of those jobs have gone to Mexico or to other countries, not just about automobiles, but anything. So a lot of our industrial jobs where we actually make things have been shipped overseas, or they have been shipped south of the border where they can be made, things can be made for way more cheap. And so a lot of the jobs in manufacturing that paid a lot of money are gone now. So this is into our future, what you have to expect. As heavy industry declined, the information age kicked into high gear. If you want to be rich someday, go into technology, engineering, mathematics, science, all of those. Microsoft and the internet, late 1990s, brought about the communications revolution. Bill Gates, one of the richest men in America. Also, science unlocked the secrets of molecular genetics in the 50s, and the Human Genome Project established the DNA sequence of the 30,000 human genes, helping create radical new medical therapies. I don't understand it, but apparently it works. And then breakthroughs in cloning animals raised questions about whether people would start cloning people. And so Dolly the sheep was famously cloned in the 80s, I think. And so then people had this big fear that babies could be cloned as well. Stem cell research, which comes from human fetuses who have been aborted, offers possible cures for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. However, Christian conservatives on the right who are pro-life are highly opposed to stem cell research because stem cells come from fetuses. Wealth and inequality. Affluence means wealth. Since the 1980s, the United States remains an enormously affluent country, but social inequality has increased due to tax policies and the weakening of the manufacturing sector, which made a lot of people that didn't have college education still make a lot of money in manufacturing. The U.S. standard of living is among the highest in the world, with a median household income in 2020 of $68,400. FYI, that's the average income of all families in America. But the reason that it's $68,000, that's a pretty high number, because that's not, I don't know what mean and median are, the difference between mean and median. But I think mean would be what's the average salary that people make. Median, I don't know how to say it. The most common salary, I think, is the mean. But anyway, $68,400, that's $4,000 more than I make. That's $4,000 more than I make, and I'm at the top of the salary scale with a master's in Sumner County. And yet that's supposedly the median household income. That's not really. It's just because people that make millions and billions of dollars pull that up higher. The mean average would be a more reasonable thing to look at, and I don't know how to explain that because I don't understand math. All right, states with the highest levels of income inequality are still in the Deep South because of a lack of unions. If you remember correctly, in the 70s and 80s, they closed down Detroit and moved all of those factories to the South because there were no unions and they could pay people a lot less. We are still at $7.25 an hour, which has been that way for over 10 years. This is what a gallon of milk costs, $3.70, and this is how long you have to work just to get a gallon of milk. A half an hour. If you make $16.57 an hour, you had to work 13 minutes. If you make $20,000 an hour, you have to work 0.01 seconds. I think Ryan looked it up. Somebody looked it up and found out how much like Bezos or somebody makes a minute. And it was like 222,000 or something like that. Or maybe a second. I don't remember. It was extraordinary. It was crazy. The richest Americans have seen their income soar since 1980. And of course, that's when I graduated from high school. And I am not the richest Americans. I am that one with the mean. Polarization of society continues as the richest 20% in 2001 raked in nearly half of the nation's income. However, the poorest 20% got a mere 4% of it. In 2020, the richest 20% possess 86% of our nation's wealth today. 20% of the population has 86% of the wealth of all of America. That's a shame. Over 40 million people had no medical insurance. Obama's health care plan mandated that all people had to be insured. That means that 80% of the wealth shares 14% of 80% of the people share 14% of the nation's wealth. 80% of us have only 14% of the rest of the wealth. An income gap caused by tax policies of Reagan and both Bush presidencies, because they cut taxes, intensified global economic competition, weakened the manufacturing sector. Clinton helped to weaken it when he created NAFTA and caused a decline in unions. After the 1980s, unions were low, and unions are, as you know, meant to fight for the workers for better salaries, better health care, better wages. So this guy, Thomas Piketty, wrote Capital in the 21st Century, and he explains what is currently happening now with Gates and Bezos and Zuckerberg and all of the richest among us. When the rate of return on capital exceeds the rate of growth of output and income, like a salary, as it did in the 19th century, the Gilded Age, and seems quite likely to do it again in the 21st century, which it is doing, capitalism automatically generates arbitrary and unsustainable inequalities. Extraordinarily rich people and extraordinarily poor people that radically undermine the meritocratic values on which democratic societies are based, meaning that you should get rich because you have merit, because you can do certain skills, not just because you are already rich. Okay, so the feminist revolution of the 21st century. Women have enjoyed improved educational and occupational opportunities in recent American history, but gender prejudices, especially regarding workplace advancement and pay, still persist for women. Women were greatly affected by the great economic changes of the late 20th century. The Equal Rights Amendment was first proposed by Alice Paul in 1923. Remember the suffragette that was force-fed? one of the very most important people to help us get women's suffrage. Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex, by which they mean gender. 1972, the Equal Rights Amendment passed both the House and the Senate. It went on to pass in 35 of the required 38 states. The ERA would lead to women being drafted by the military and to public unisex bathrooms. This is Phyllis Schlafly. She believed women should be barefoot and pregnant and home with their families and not at work. So keep in mind, the Equal Rights Amendment passed the House and Senate, but it only passed in 35 of what would be required of 38 states. So it did not pass in our country. In the Deep South, in the Bible Belt, people like Phyllis Schlafly helped to undermine that, and as a result, women still don't have an Equal Rights Amendment passed. Women by the numbers. Over 5 decades, women steadily increased their presence in the workplace. By the 1990s, nearly half of all workers were women. Keep in mind, when I was a young kid, most people in the 50s and 60s, that dad went off to work and mom stayed home and took care of the family and the kids. Working and stay-at-home mothers, working, married with husband working, other. 1970, 53% were working. Now, in 2012, it was 71%. Married with a husband working, 40% in 1970, and 2012, 20%. And then other, 7%, and then 9%. So way, way more women are working, and I would guess that if that were 2020 now, that would be closer to probably 75-80% of women work. Women still got lower wages and are still more concentrated in low prestige, low paying occupations compared to men still today. So universal health care, or Obamacare, the pros and cons. Pros, lowers healthcare costs for an economy, but it forces healthy people to pay for others' medical care, which still happens today no matter what, because if you don't have insurance and you have to break your arm, the tax dollars are still going to pay for that. Forces hospitals and doctors to provide some standard of care, the same standard of care at a lower cost.
Everyone needs to start heading up to the cafeteria, please, at this time.
Without financial incentive, people may not be as careful with their health. And then eliminates administrative costs by eliminating need to deal with private insurance. And then most universal health systems report long wait times for elective procedures. Women are more likely to favor government support for health and children, education, and job equality. And the aging of America, baby boomers. With the retirement of the baby boom generation and the declining birth rates in modern America, I can retire in 2025, and remember, I'm the end of the baby boomers, but that's the beginning of you paying for me as a retiree, and that's 2025. Let's assume that I live another 10, 15, 20 years. That means that you're still paying for me for 20 years after 2025. So the baby boomers are going to be part of you paying for us pretty close to the middle of the century by 2050. With the retirement of the baby boom generation, the declining birth rates in modern America, the expensive entitlement programs are having a significant impact on federal budgets and the health of the American economy. Americans are living longer than ever before as baby boomers are retiring now. Americans are, and I'm at the end and I retire in 5 years, so we've been retiring for this whole 20 years. Americans are living longer than ever before as baby boomers are retiring now. The graying of the population raised a slew of economic, social, and political concerns, and the elderly are a very big, strong voting bloc because old people vote. You've got to vote, you guys. This is my last video. Go vote when you're 18. Vote when you're 18 and vote every time, every election, local, regional, national, vote in every election for the rest of your lives, please. As a result, the share of the gross national product spent on healthcare for people over 65 has more than doubled. And it's going to get worse. Social Security has increased, but the ratio of active workers to retirees has dropped so low that drastic adjustments are necessary to keep the system viable so that you can have Social Security when you're old and gray like I am getting. It's got to be changed or you won't have Social Security. It's considered an unfunded liability. The difference between what the government promised to pay to the elderly and the taxes expected to be taken in is about $7 trillion. and might destroy the U.S. if new reforms are not adopted soon, meaning that there's a lot of people that are going to be expecting to get Social Security and that are retiring with that expectation, and it could crash our American economy. The new immigration. As you know, immigration is a huge issue in the 21st century. The U.S. remains a nation largely unreceptive to working class immigrants, despite their continued contributions to the economy, and with the Latino population soaring, many have demanded changes to federal immigration policy. Many recent immigrants come from Asia and Latin America. Latinos are now the U.S.'s largest ethnic voting bloc. Recent immigrants came for economic gain, but most came with fewer skills and less education. A lot of them are migrant workers in the fields, which a lot of Americans will not do those jobs. The Southwest has felt immigration the hardest, as Latinos make up nearly 1/3 of the population in California, Arizona, and Texas, and nearly 40% in New Mexico. Some Americans fear that modern America's ability to absorb these immigrants is decreasing, that we can't afford to have them. I obviously am a liberal. I don't believe that. Conservatives absolutely believe that. Spending on immigration enforcement, origins of the estimated 11 to 12 undocumented immigrants, 59% from Mexico, 11% from Central America, 11% from Asia. The Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986 attempted to reduce illegal immigrants by penalizing the employers of undocumented aliens, but it was rarely enforced against the employers. Instead, they started arresting the laborers. But a lot of people have said all they have to do is penalize the employers. If employers are fined for having illegal immigrants work for them, they will stop hiring them, and people won't come here because they can't get jobs because the businesses won't hire them. But the government never enforced this. This is famous, people that don't want immigrants to come here. Whites, do you want to become a minority? If so, support mass immigration. Anti-immigration sentiment has flared up during the economic recessions of the early 1990s and then in the late 2000s, like 2010, after the recession. California attempted to deny benefits, including education, to illegal immigrants, but it was later struck down by the courts. We are not allowed to deny if you are an illegal immigrant or you are not a documented worker here. We still provide education for everybody that's a student age in America. Asian Americans also made great strides. They are the fastest growing minority in the U.S. today. And it's over. Marilyn and I wish you adieu. Love you guys. I'll miss you.